Good evening, everyone. It is another Tuesday evening live broadcast, and really good to be around this evening. Guess what? The nights are drawing in. Winter's on its way, and we've not even had summer yet. Anyway, so, welcome to you all this evening. Those of you on catch up, days, weeks, or even months are welcome. Stick with it for about 25 minutes. Even if you're not somebody of faith, we're looking at betrayal, but we're looking at spiritual betrayal this evening, and say welcome to those of you that watch weekly, those of you that watch really kind of religiously, so to speak. You never make a comment, but I really appreciate the fact that you take the time out to just spend some time. It might be good if you've got pen and paper with you, just to jot down some thoughts. Also, even if you don't have a particular faith, but you know that people that are, and maybe some of the things that you're hearing is a bit strange where they go, this might be good to kind of share with them, just to let them know what's going on. Thank you, sound engineer. Thank you, Sonia. So we're going to be looking at, we're still looking at the act of betrayal, and we're looking at spiritual betrayal. You may have noticed the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've started to write newsletters, which accompanies the broadcast. The kind of a newsletter, and then there's a build up to the broadcast on the Tuesday night. Really enjoying writing the newsletters. It's something to kind of take away and to reflect on. So yeah, my name is Delroy Hall. For those who may be watching for the first time, still people watching for the first time or scrolling, I'm a trained psychotherapist, have been for 30 years, teacher, lecturer, also an author. I'm really easy to find on social media, so you can kind of look me up. You see that I'm the real McCoy, not a charlatan. There's many of them about. Yeah, just to say, I've got a 3-year track record digital CV. So you can certainly find me on Facebook and so forth, going back 3 years. Yeah, so so we're looking at spiritual betrayal this evening, and really, really important. But also, I just want to begin. Good evening, Jenny. So every betrayal begins with trust. The deeper the trust, the deeper the pain. So we'll be looking at spiritual betrayal for those who may be joining. So Calvin Corelli says this: spiritual betrayal is when you put your faith in someone or something representing the spiritual to you, such as a priest, a yogi, a spiritual leader, a school, a teacher, an institution, or simply God or life. And he, she, it then lets you down, and your conclusion that he, it, she has failed to protect you and failed to keep you safe. Good evening, Lindsay. Thank you for, and everyone for joining in this evening, and for the late one. So this whole thing about spiritual betrayal. Sometimes, certainly over the years, I've met people who've really turned their back on organized religion because of the experiences they've had. If you read my newsletter, I share some of the experience over the years I've heard. A very good friend of mine who wanted to just kind of ease out from the activities of church, focus on her studies and her young children. And when spoke to the pastor, they couldn't understand why she was backing away from it. And then when she turned up for a meeting, she had to share all the details in front of the whole church. That's spiritual betrayal. Oh, okay, Michael, listening with interest. Okay, I hope I don't put anything off. In fact, I'm not talking about Christianity per se. The spiritual betrayal goes right across the religions. Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Sikhism. The issue is we don't want to talk about it. So things happen, and then it's swept under the carpet. Clergy quite often close ranks, and then the people who have been faithful worshippers, adherents, are then kind of sidelined. But the things we don't want to talk about it, and by the mere fact we don't want to talk about it, it then weakens our stance in certain parts of the community. So good evening, Dawn. Good to see you this evening, Dawn. Okay, another one. Paula Swindell says this: a unique component of the betrayal dynamic, when applied to religion or religious abuse, is the potential for the abuser to be conflated with God. When the perpetrator is a member of the clergy, often the perpetrator is one who many people, including the victim, they look up to. That person, they saw them as a representative God on earth, or at least was empowered by God to protect, to serve, to do so many things. And so the victim not only feels betrayed by the leader, but also feels betrayed by God. So you can see this whole thing is really difficult for people to kind of work through. Good evening, Norma, and anyone else who's just kind of chipped in late and watching either on YouTube or LinkedIn or even Twitter. I can't even tell. So betrayal, we said already, is destructive. But when you had a religious dimension to it, it's not just a mistrust in another human being, but also then it can lead to a mistrust in the divinity or the deity or whatever God the person might serve. So that's really kind of destructive. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a bit. Once you've been betrayed, and certainly in this sense, it's really difficult to have any deep trust in anything spiritual again. Quite often people, they turn their back on it and so forth. I'm going to say a little bit more about that in the end. But let me say this. It must be said that spirituality is not a guarantee for safety on earth. I've got to make that very clear, that spirituality is no guarantee for safety on earth. Having faith is no guarantee for safety on earth. But what it does, it helps us to get meaning of when things happen. So lots of things happen. I'll give you a scenario. Well, this is a true story. The church I used to belong to, I was in Leicester, and I was very friendly with somebody from down south. And one night after a Bible study, they left church, and one of the young ladies from Bible study went into an off license to buy something. Unbeknown to her, moments later, the off license was raided. She was accidentally shot in the eye with an air gun and lost the sight of her eye. So she just came from Bible study. And there's this whole thing, what happens to people when there's this kind of betrayal, there's some questions that are asked. So spirituality does not give us a safe passage on earth. The purpose, or one of the purposes of spirituality, is to help us see or to understand the meaning of things. That's one of the things it's meant to do, as well as, even though, for example, things are really difficult, it can give us a sense of peace and calm when we don't have all the answers to things. So it's no guarantee. But what I will say, though, if there has been betrayal, we spoke about betrayal trauma a few weeks ago, if it's really important that you have people, or you find people around you that can guide you through the situation. And what happens if it's done well, even though the event was horrible, if you're guided well, what can happen? You can learn from the situation. You can become more open, more loving, more compassionate. And I'm not saying for a moment you must experience spiritual betrayal for these things to happen, but it's when things do happen in our lives, and some things are really horrible, how can we learn from it to make us a better person? And I'm not saying for one moment this is an overnight job. It's not. Sometimes it takes years of processing. I was talking to a chaplain today, and I said to him, one of the characteristics of really good chaplains is that they've gone through some stuff. I remember talking to somebody from the armed forces. He was the head of all the chaplains, and he said there's some excellent chaplains we've got in the armed forces. He said, Delroy, some of them have been to hell and back, but it's the experience and learning from the experience that has made them a good chaplain, one who can listen, who can empathize. And even somebody that may be listening, that maybe the reasons why you're good as a counselor, you've gone through some stuff, but you've been able to learn from it, process it, and you're more open and loving, compassionate and caring to other people. So it's really important. So learning can make the pain more bearable, and any fears that we may have for the future kind of melt away. So I'm not saying for 1 minute that suffering makes you good, makes you strong. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not into cliches and platitudes. Those of you that know me, I'm not into that at all. However, some of the experiences that we have in the right hands, and if we're guided well, we can learn from it. I had an excellent ministerial coach, supervisor, who I went through some difficult stuff a few years ago, and he was brilliant. Didn't tell me what to do, just guided me to make certain decisions and certain things I had to do about my life. So much has been said about clergy and sexual abuse. Lots have been said about that already, and I don't want to get into that this evening. It's a huge topic. Those of you that have read the newsletter, you would have seen some things, because I wanted to take a different view. I didn't want to focus on sexual abuse. That's one part of it. But also, if anything today that I share troubles you or triggers you, please don't suffer in silence. DM me and I'll certainly see if I can put you in contact with somebody. We can have a conversation, but I don't want anybody to leave here feeling really kind of re-traumatized or re-triggered. All these sessions are hints and tips to help us get through to the next stop, but this is no substitute for going to see your GP or make an appointment with a psychologist or psychotherapist or a counselor to get the support that you need, or even a coach. You might decide that there's some aspects of your life. We're looking at this evening, but it triggers or it evokes something else for you about your life, nothing to do with spirituality, but something else, and you might feel that you need a coach to help you process a few things. So I've left lots of examples in my newsletter. I know of women who have been involved in domestic violence, and when they've reported it to the church, they've really been sidelined. I've seen literally beautiful women almost reduced to less than half of their former selves because they weren't taken seriously when they had partners who were violent and so forth. Church kind of clubbed together, didn't take it seriously. Unfortunately, the women I do know, they've left and they've come out at the other side, but it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. It took time. So this whole thing about spiritual betrayal is really important. So as I said, quite often clergy, they kind of close ranks over family. I remember somebody many years ago had a particular issue, lost a lot of money, and when she went to report it, the person said very clearly it's ministry over family, and she was sidelined by the ministry. So these are unpleasant things. We don't want to talk about it quite often, but they're things that happen, and we need to talk about it to get it out into the open so we can deal with it, and hopefully things will be better going forward. So this whole thing, so the pain, so when there's spiritual betrayal, the pain is intense due to the investment, the time, effort, and energy we've placed in an institution, in an organization, or even a person. So it's really intense. But what I want to suggest to you, if you've experienced that, or you know somebody who has, enable them for the effort, the energies that they've used in and put into other places, they learn to put on themselves. So faith is a dimension of life-giving. It's meaning making. It helps people to make sense of their existence. So when that is shattered, we can see that people are really rattled by it, and the pain is intense because faith gives people meaning, it gives them orientation, it gives them direction, it gives them guidance. And when all that is shattered or fractured, we can see what happens to an individual. Jenny's got a question here, share it. What's the best way to deal with spiritual betrayal when you've tried to report it or tell someone that you trust, but you're cold-shouldered, frozen out, or not believe? Well, I've said this in other instances. You can't remain there and heal. If it's something that where the law has been broken, you report it to the police. That's it. And for some of you, you'll say that, well, maybe someone that's listening either live or later on, it could be, well, it says in the Bible that we shouldn't take brothers and sisters to court. Yes, it does. But when the law has been broken, you get the law involved. That's it. When the law has been broken, you get the law involved. I don't think I need to say any more. Jenny, if that's not answered your question, get back to me and I'll certainly have another stab at it. So as I said, faith is a dimension of life-giving, meaning-making, making sense of one's existence. It's also, people are now recognizing that faith is a contributor to people's well-being. So it's not just something that happens on a Sunday morning for a couple of hours or Saturday when you go to the synagogue, but it's really helpful in holding people together, holding communities together. It's really helpful in terms of well-being. And as I said before, it gives us a sense, direction, faith, and so forth. So one of the things about spiritual betrayal, which quite often we don't, as you can imagine, if your faith has been shattered, it's given you, until this point, meaning, direction, and so forth, and all that has been broken, shattered, there is this loss of meaning. What does this all mean? And you're also left with, if God was really caring, why has this happened to me? If God really loved me, why has this happened to me? So remember, I'm not saying this about Christianity. I'm going right across the spectrum. Yeah. So Dawn has rightly said, the absence of faith is hopelessness. So that would make sense, indeed. Yeah. If seriously, if see, it's not just kind of a belief. It really does shape people's lives, and if that is shattered, you can see then what happens. It's though people are kind of crumbling in. I'm going to say a little bit more about this right now. So when there's this kind of spiritual betrayal, loss of meaning, but also there's a loss of self. Who am I? I thought I believed this, and now I'm not even too sure what to believe. I thought I was somebody of significance, a part of this institution. Now I'm not even too sure. If I was important, why has this happened? I've been faithful. Why has this happened to me? Why have I been treated this way? So it's not just a belief in our heads, but how a kind of almost like our existence has been really, really rattled. This loss of self, I want to say a little bit about this. It's really interesting. This loss of self, kind of taken from the world of where people have chronic illnesses. So this loss of self, a fundamental form of suffering, especially for people with chronic illness, so chronic illness is long-term illness. So this loss of self, long-term illness, that people see their former lives crumbling and they've got nothing in its place. So this whole thing around, who am I? Why has this happened? Where do I now belong? There's this, some would call it, people maybe who don't have a prescribed faith, they may call it an existential crisis, that the person don't know who they are. And it's really important, this whole thing about loss of self. And if there's a loss of self, how do we gain that aspect of ourselves again? Here we go, is another question, part two. Second part of the question, what if it's where your own authenticity is used as a covering for someone else's behavior and others don't believe you've been betrayed? Well, that's an interesting question. Now, let me read that again. What if it's where your own authenticity is used as a covering for someone else's behavior and others don't believe you've been betrayed? Jenny, could you say a bit more on that? I think I've got a handle of it, but could you just break it down a bit more? Because I want to answer it correctly. It's a good question, but could you just break it down a bit more so I can come back to it? That'd be really helpful for me and maybe for those that are listening as well. Excellent question, mind you. Really, really important question. So there's this kind of loss of self taken from the world of people, chronic illness, and they kind of see their former lives crumbling and they don't know what else is in place. So you can imagine quite often with trauma, and certainly betrayal trauma, spiritual betrayal, what's been familiar is now shattered. What do I have in its place? Nothing. So this time is really kind of scary. It's fearful. So there's that time of kind of rebuilding that needs to take place. And it's not about time as a healer. No, none of that. The impact or the effect of spiritual betrayal, any form of betrayal, doesn't go away. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't kind of diffuse into the atmosphere. We have to work through it, and it takes time. So these are just kind of two or three things, and you'll be able to find some of the things that I've said in other sessions about betrayal. They're helpful as well. But I think one of the things, of course, is being able to acknowledge what's taken place. Be honest about the experience, even though you're asking the questions why, but be honest about what's taken place. Don't dodge it. And the impact it's had on you, don't dodge it. Talk about it. It's really important. So you seek out spiritual guidance and direction from a source you respect. Now, of course, if it's the person in the local church that's betrayed you, you can't get the guidance from that person, certainly if they're in denial. So you need to find a source outside of church. I know that for many people in certain traditions of religion, they will not go to see a counselor or a psychologist or a psychotherapist. They'll see it as something that's alien to people of faith. But there are some excellent psychologists and therapists and counselors who don't prescribe to a faith, but very sensitive to people of faith. And I'm not of the opinion because somebody's not from the church, what they have is of no value whatsoever. Or if somebody doesn't have a particular religious view, they can't help me. I stopped believing that many years ago. I've got doctors that help me, I've got dentists that help me, and I don't think that some of them have got any particular perspectives on faith, but they've helped me. Listen, I couldn't care less if a dentist is an atheist. If it gets rid of my toothache, it's good enough for me. So look, I think this whole thing about this is the world and we separate ourselves from it, that's nonsense. We're here, we need to live, we need to engage with the world and interact with the world in a healthy way, in terms of a kind of symbiotic way. Good evening, Jerry, good to see you. So in terms of spiritual betrayal, we're looking at this where someone, something that you would put our trust in, they've kind of let us down, they've disappointed. Don't worry about being late. It's not school, so you won't get no detention marks. So how's that? You won't get any you won't get any detention for being late. Not unless, of course, once everybody's gone home and finished, that you want to stay behind and have a chat with me for a few minutes. I'm more than happy for that to happen. In fact, no, it won't happen on StreamYard. Oh yeah, so number one, find a source that can help you to work through, somebody who's not going to patronize, belittle, dismiss, deny what you've gone through. You want somebody who's going to be really there for you, and work through the betrayal with God as much as you can. That's really important. And so you might say, well, how might you do that, Delroy? For those of you who like journaling, there's one exercise is called the paper dialogue, where you literally on paper, sheets of paper, you write a kind of conversation between you and God, or you and the deity. Or if those of you that are into Gestalt, you'll be in one chair, there's an empty chair, so you pretend that the other person, in that case God the deity, is in the other chair, and you talk to them. And for some people who pray, you use your prayer as a way of questioning about God. Where is he and why has this happened? So it's not about necessarily seeking answers, but actually using the prayer to express what you've gone through. Now then, let's just see if we can get part to this question. Jenny, part 2, for example, your name is used as if you were part of someone else's behavior, action, decision. So people think you must have known what they were doing. When you try to get help for being betrayed, they don't believe you too were manipulated. Right, let me read that again. Your name has been used as if you are part of someone else's behavior, actions, decisions. So people think you must have known what they were doing. When you try to when you try to get help for being betrayed, they don't believe you. They don't believe you. Or they don't believe you too. You were manipulated or betrayed. Oh gosh. I'm trying to work my head around that. Oh gosh, that's the thing about not being able. Right, this has made my mind up about something which I shall. It's now August. I shall be saying something at the end of this month, because I really want some of these sessions to be more interactive. So I think going forward, my online things will be a lot shorter, but I'll have longer things at the end of a month, possibly on Zoom. But I'll say more about that. I'll be taking a break. I'll still be here on Tuesday nights, but I think having the conversation is really important. I think you're trying to say something really important, Jenny, and I'm still missing it. And I'm not getting it, so I'm not understanding it clearly. Oh gosh, your name is being used as if you're part of someone else's behavior, action, decisions. So people think you must have known what they were doing. Okay, I think I know. Yeah, okay. Gosh, That's a good question. Well, obviously, obviously you've had the experience of being betrayed. So if people thought you knew what they were doing, there's a bit either there's a misunderstanding or some deception going on. I see the question, but I know that I'm not answering it well. I think it's the first time in 3 years I've not answered one of your questions as clearly as I could do, because I think I'm missing something. If I get, I've still, gosh, I've not got long left, but if I can get it before we finish in about 5 minutes or so, I'll see if I can come back to you. If not, you now have to contact me. So there, and then. Okay, all right. They think you are a betrayer. Oh, right. Oh, wow, that's deep. As somebody said on LinkedIn after they read my article, that's deep. That's a very good question. Yeah, if they think you were in cahoots with them, there's a form of manipulation going on. I think, if I've understood you correctly. Yeah, so you've been deceived, haven't you? You've been betrayed, and assumingly this person you in cahoots with or working with, your friends. So they've done it. They've basically, I think, what you would say, they've shafted you. Quite often, if you've been shafted, it means you don't know. You didn't know what was going on. If I've understood you correctly, so yeah, you have been betrayed. It can happen, and if that's the case, your interaction with that person is minimum. Well, it has to end, because not only did they betray you, I say a lie against you, but they thought that you were part of it, and in fact you weren't. So it seems to me there's quite a lot of things going on there, which is toxic, which is not good. If I've not answered that, Jenny, come back to me. But I think it's a really important question, actually, because it can happen. You're working with somebody with a genuine mind, genuine thought, but then you've been stitched up as well. So there's some double crossing going on, some double dealing going on with the person who you're working with. I think I may have answered the question. I'm not sure, but if not, come back to me. Okay, so and the other thing I would say, just in terms of some of the steps, give yourself time to work through the anger, the disappointment, the upset, all those negative things. Good evening, Roy. Really good to see you this evening. So we're looking at spiritual betrayal, only about 2 or 3 more minutes. So one of the difficulties about the loss of shame is the loss of self. Is this kind of crumbling away of your former self? It's buried in shame. Remember, we spoke about shame a few weeks ago. There's this whole, going back to the questions that's been raised this evening, is this whole, the loss of self is the loss of being seen, heard, and believed. If you've ever had that happen to you, it's almost otherworldly. What's happened? I know what I've experienced. In fact, what happens to people quite often, and I've heard them say it to me, Delroy, I'm so glad that you affirmed what I was feeling, because I thought I was going mad. The people at the workplace or the individuals in the church or wherever it was that have not taken me seriously. And I got to the place where I thought I was losing it. So what happens? People start getting paranoid. And I'm so glad you've been able to affirm that what I was feeling and thinking and experiencing, it was natural and normal to what was happening, because I was in an environment where I was not taken seriously. If you're in an environment like that, you can't stay. You can't stay and heal and recover. You have to find another place. Look, a few more, just a couple more minutes, because I think this thing is really, really important, and to rush it is not good. I think I'm going to finish there, because I don't want to rush the next bit. So I'm going to do a bit more about spiritual betrayal. I think it's important. It happens far more than we realize. And people are damaged by it. I remember talking to a woman quite recently who said to me that she saw her father, who was involved in a religious institution, treated really badly. And she said that just put her off organized religion. She said, I still have my faith in God, but it just put me off completely how I saw my father betrayed by an organization that he worked hard for, had sacrificed, had given most of his life for, and then I saw how he was treated. I turned my back on organized religion, but I still got my faith in God, and I still believe, and so forth. So I'm going to finish on that. I'm going to finish off with spiritual betrayal next week. I don't want to rush it. I think half an hour of your time is really important. Jenny, please come back to me with that question. And in fact, what I'll do, if we can get it sorted out between now and next week, I'll bring it back to our attention for next week, kind of unpack it a bit, and then offer an answer. Right. Dorothy, I've come across individuals who have been put on religion because of how a family member would. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely correct. Yeah. So this whole thing around, and the reason why they're put off is that it's the investment, the energy, the time that they've given to an institution or an organization, really helpful. Now, here we go. I think, and that's what Jenny's saying. Years ago, I cautioned a married colleague about their relationship with another married colleague, asking them if their spouse would be happy about the amount of time they were spending with the colleague. When matters came to a head and it finally blew up, the colleague's spouse put me in the mix, and I became a persona non grata when in fact I've been trying to help them. My colleague could not say anything as it would have implicated. Oh, hang on. I've just lost the last bit. I can't get the last bit. Yeah. Ooh, can't get the last bit. Yeah. Obviously, there's a limit to the word thing on this. I just can't get it. Yeah, I think I get it now. Yeah, I think I get it. Yeah, yeah. I think I partly understood. I think I partly described it, that you can get caught up in the mix, innocently, accidentally. Okay, right. Yes. Yeah. Okay. My colleague could. Okay. Yeah, my colleague. Okay, I think I understood. Years ago, I cautioned the married colleague about the relationship with another married colleague, asking them if their spouse would be happy about the amount of time they spend with their colleague. When matters came to a head and it finally blew up, the colleague's spouse put me in the mix, and I became a persona non grata when in fact I'd been trying to help them. My colleague could not say anything as it would have implicated themselves. Yeah, yeah. I think the layman's term for that, Jenny, is you're stitched up. Or somehow you can get caught up in the mix, and you want it to be honest, and then you get caught up in the mix. I think somebody has once said that you need to be careful that your good is not evil spoken of, and I hope that answers that. But yes, you're right. I think, yeah, you can be really trying to help a situation because you see something happening and then you get caught up in it, and then it gets really difficult. Yeah, I think that's helpful. If it's not, come back to me, please do. Brilliant. Good. Brilliant. Good. Yes. So, yeah, spiritual betrayal is deep. It's, in fact, if you Google spiritual betrayal, there's not much. I had to dig really deep. There's lots of stuff around sexual abuse, but other aspects of spiritual betrayal, there's not much around. So I had to dig really deep. I've got enough for certainly next week. So yeah, so thank you very much, everyone, for taking the time. I hope you got some notes. I think the danger, of course, with spiritual betrayal is that the person who feels betrayed by the leader, the clergy, then conflates that with being betrayed by God. And it gets really complicated. And then part of your work as a therapist, a person of faith, or somebody sensitive to people of faith, is actually, how do you untangle this mess? That this is the organization, this is the person, and this is God. And that takes time to kind of untangle. It really does take time. As the young woman said to me, I've really turned my back on religious organizations, but I still got my belief in God. I understand that the church or the mosque or the temple or the gurdwara or the synagogue is something else, and God is something else as well. And it takes some weaving out. And next week I will talk about the stages that we go through till we get to the place where we can kind of separate them out. So listen, thank you much indeed for your time this evening. You've been a great audience. Thank you for the questions, the troubling questions again. But yeah, I think it's really kind of confirmed that I need to do something where, you know, we can actually talk when we're actually on these sessions. So I'm working on something, and I'll let us know what I'll be doing at the end of this month. So I will be still broadcasting a lot shorter because of a break and people going away on holidays and so forth, and I need a bit of a break as well, but I want to kind of keep it going. And yeah, so thank you everyone. Thank you. So enjoy the rest of your evening and enjoy the rest of your week. If you're on holiday, have a great time, and take some time out if you can this month just to kind of chill a bit, rest a bit, enjoy the sunshine when it comes, if it comes. But I'll see you soon. See you next week for part 2 of Spiritual Betrayal. And I'll have a newsletter for the next few days as well. Take care. And Jerry, thanks for the kiss. Really appreciate it. All right. Take care. All the best, everybody. Bye-bye.